Hi, I'm author Mark Anthony Tierno, and I'm here with another writing tip. Today I'm going to talk about not being afraid. Now, by nature, a lot of writers are shy or reserved intellectuals, and this is usually because maybe we're picked on when we were kids. I know I was. I was picked on for basically being smart and bad in sports. That's not a good combination when you're 9. But however, the reason we've developed a preoccupation with what others think about how we do things. We're afraid of criticism. And we're just too caught up in following rules that everyone else tells us about different things, even if they really don't know much about those things themselves or no one else follows the rules. We follow them because we're just afraid. Well, I'm here to tell you that when it comes to the writing, that there's only one person you have to listen to, and that's you. Forget what anybody else says, family, friends, colleagues, a voice in your back of your head that someone put there, when your writing teacher was scolding you on something, so long ago. There's no one looking over your shoulder. No one to tell you what to do or how to do it. No one. That's the first thing I realized when I began typing on my first story. I went, it's just me. There's no one here, speaking in my ear. No one else. I don't have to be afraid of anything. Pretty much as regards this world I'm creating, I'm God. And that's what gave me the freedom to just, go out and do whatever I wanted to be creative enough to spit out this thing. But it's your universe, and you have total control. Those basic rules of grammar you learned back when you were back in elementary school, that's pretty much all you need. How to tell a story, what you should put into it, how many characters, how long, everything else. That's all up to you and you alone, and what you feel is best for the story. Ignore that annoying voice in the back of your head, or the memories of what your creative writing teacher told you. This is the way it should be. This is the structure it should be. It should have X number of acts and so on. Take off the literary shackles and just charge straight ahead. Feel free to experiment, see what works, see what doesn't work. And don't be obligated to go by other writers' insistence of what they say is the best way to write. Also keep in mind a number of those teachers in your creative writing course in college or whatever. They're there teaching how to write because they probably aren't selling their books. So how much of an authority are they if they're in a position where they're teaching other than doing because no one likes what they write? So that gives you about as good a chance as any of finding something on your own that actually works. Plus, what works for one person does not work for another. Say that creative writing course guy maybe is a big-time author, but what he does works for him and the way his mindset works. It wouldn't necessarily work for you. So again, fly, be free. You are in charge, and you alone. When you finally have your book finished to your satisfaction, then you can pass it around and get some opinions from your friends, families, colleagues, whatever, and start editing. But don't put the cart before the horse. Get it written first, however you want. In my case, I began experimenting with certain sort of quasi-poetic sounding phrases. Like the opening line in chapter 1 of Maldine, and that was the first one I thought of that inspired how I'm going to do it, is distant crack of thunder, a pretender eventuating the eccentricities of mortals. That sounds sort of half poetic, half Shakespeare thing, and that works fine for me. I can pull it off time and again. that may not necessarily work for you or pretty much anybody else. And there are other writers that have ways of writing things that I couldn't do that actually don't work for me. So find your own way. Don't be afraid, and don't start showing around until after you have a finished pursuit to your satisfaction. We need some examples. Jules Verne comes to mind. The guy that basically invented science fiction. But most importantly, at the time, there was no creative writing courses. He was taught your basics in grammar, punctuation. He'd read a couple of even older books, and that was it. There was no university degree in ancient literature, creative writing, or whatever. Jules Verne invented his own methods for telling a story and his own genre. I'll go even further back. William Shakespeare. There were no courses on literature at the time. Uh, Barely enough people knew how to write at all. Most everybody didn't even know how to read. He had to invent everything in order to tell a proper story. He invented hundreds of words. The word assassin, for instance, he had to come up with that thing. So there's a lot of stuff that he had to invent because it did not exist. And at some point in history, there was no one telling a writer how to write and how to tell a story because there was no one around to do so. They just had to experiment and see what worked for them. And then charge in despite criticisms and the whispers of editors. So that rule still applies. You can still experiment, find your own creative way of telling the story the way you want. Just don't be afraid. Yeah, who knows? You might discover a different technique that no one's thought of how to tell a story. At the least, you'll discover what best works for you. How you can tell a story, not how someone else would. Because how they tell a story, that's their story. You want to tell your story. So if I had to give like the single most important tip of all the writing tips, I would say you be you. Be not afraid to charge into the literary world and divest yourself of those shackles given you by others. Don't be afraid. You can afford to not be shy because it's just you and that keyboard. And that's how I found my way until I came out of it and began passing around and found out, hey, lo and behold, people think I'm really pretty good. Some would even say great. And that started because of shy youngster that is me and always within me. I'm still a shy person. But when it comes to actually writing, I can throw all that to the winds. You can too.